חמלה שהיא גורפת כזאת? כולנו בני אדם. לא, לא. אנשים הם פרי החינוך שהם גדלים עליו. ואם מגדלים אותך כמו שרץ, זה מה שאתה נהיה. שרץ ביבים.
כן,
אנס, מגעיל, בן אדם תינופת בן תינופת.
This quote was actually a couple of months after October 7th, 2023. Most people think that this sentiment by Israelis came post-Hamas attack and the eventual killing and capturing of many Israeli citizens. But such sentiments of impunity, racism, collective punishment, blatant lies, and dehumanization have been the standard since the nation's inception. Previously, I had generated a video speaking specifically about how, in their own words, Zionists say what's on their mind. Confessions of an Occupier summarize these shocking statements over the last century and a half. In this video, I want to expand on that revelation, focusing on a 3-decade duration since the Oslo Accords that were meant to establish peace between two nations, Israel and Palestine. The Zionist rhetoric was anything but peaceful, anything but humane. Such hatred doesn't change its skin overnight. No, it carries on openly till someone calls it out for what it is. Long before 2023, language about ethnic cleansing and collective punishment had already been sharpening its knives. In 2014, Ayelet Shaked shared a call to eliminate Palestinian mothers of terrorists, arguing entire families were legitimate targets. Moshe Phelan openly advocated expulsion, describing Palestinians as a demographic problem to be removed. Eli Ben-Dahan labeled Palestinians beasts, undeserving of equal rights. This wasn't fringe poetry shouted into the void. It echoed from ministers, lawmakers, prime ministers in waiting. Collective punishment wasn't an accident of policy. It was rehearsed in language first. Ethnic cleansing, before it marched, cleared its throat. As an example of this, in early 2023, the town of Huwwara learned again how quickly night can be taught to burn. After 2 Israeli settlers were killed, mobs of settlers poured in. Homes torched, cars gutted, a man slain, IDF soldiers watching idly as history repeated itself. What was buried was that the shooting of the settlers was in retribution for weeks of lethal Israeli raids that killed over 30 Palestinians across the West Bank, as documented by the United Nations, B'Tselem, and the New York Times. Violence here never arrives alone. It comes footnoted, dragging yesterday behind it. Zvika Fogel, a member of Knesset, continued the same wild tone. A closed, burnt Huwwara. That's what I want to see. That's the only way to achieve deterrence. After a murder like yesterday's, we need burning villages when the IDF doesn't act. Today, we recognize the herbicide that is Gaza. Several hundred thousands of tons of explosives have turned the open-air prison into scorched earth. What Gaza has seen isn't the first or last time. In 2008, Operation Cast-Lead, known more accurately as the Gaza Massacre, led to over 1,400 Palestinians dead and the destruction of 46,000 homes. Shortly before this military conflict, Meir Shetrit, former Minister of the Interior, made a prophetic statement. The IDF should decide on a neighborhood in Gaza and level it. While Eli Yishai, former Deputy Prime Minister, added his 5 cents worth during the operation when he said, "The goal of the operation is to send Gaza back to the Middle Ages. Only then will Israel be calm for 40 years. Well, it didn't stay calm for barely a decade. So what then? When it comes to Zionist racism and supremacy towards Palestinians, it is rarely hidden in the footnotes. It slips easily into everyday speech, from parliament floors to street interviews, way before October 2023. Polls by the Israel Democracy Institute and Pew have long shown majorities endorsing Jewish supremacy in law, land, and rights. Ministers speak of Palestinians as a demographic threat. Commentators call for transfer. Soldiers joke at checkpoints where power tilts absolutely. This is not every tongue, but it is many. Enough to shape policy, normalize domination, and becomes a language acceptable by the masses. When supremacy becomes conversational, it no longer needs uniforms. it becomes atmosphere, and those breathing it learn to mistake privilege for destiny and inequality for common sense. Eli Yishai, the former deputy prime minister, clearly exhibited such elitism. He said that Muslims that arrive here do not even believe that this country belongs to us, to the white man. Or if we want to represent the real foundation of how democratic the Zionist nation truly is, listen to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, who in 2019 stated, "Israel is not a state of all its citizens. It is the nation state of the Jewish people and only them." Eliezer Kashtil, the head of B'nai David, a prestigious Israeli religious and military academy, confidently expressed his racist rant.
סביבנו עמים כאלו עם בעיות גנטיות. תשאל ערבי פשוט, איפה אתה רוצה להיות? הוא רוצה להיות תחת הכיבוש. למה? כי יש להם בעיה גנטית, הם לא יודעים לנהל מדינה, הם לא יודעים לעשות כלום. תראה איך הם נראים.
Such a racist attitude isn't even restricted to Palestinians or Arabs. The Zionist Jews' self-prescribed supremacy even targets the behavior of Jews themselves in the West. The president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, who in 2018, while on vacation, articulated such disdain. "I went to the US and encountered something I termed a real plague. I saw the children of my friends marrying or living with non-Jewish partners." From the early 2000s onward, dehumanization hardened into habit. During the Second Intifada, Palestinians were routinely framed as terrorists in bulk, not as people in context, a language that was echoed by officials, media panels, and military briefings. Human rights groups like B'Tselem and Amnesty documented how this rhetoric bled into policy, closures, collective punishment, casual humiliation. When a people are spoken of as a security problem rather than human lives, empathy thins. Words repeated became permissions, and permissions became systems. When 2.5 million people lived in a closed-off Gaza, it's going to be a human catastrophe. Those people will become even bigger animals than they are today, with the aid of an insane fundamentalist Islam. The pressure at the border will be awful. It's going to be a terrible war. So if we want to remain alive, we will have to kill and kill and kill, all day, every day, said Arnon Sofer, a professor of geography at the University of Haifa, as well as an advisor to Prime Minister Sharon. Dehumanization takes a direct spin with a reference to Palestinians as monkeys with Naftali Bennett, the 13th Prime Minister of Israel. And finally, on the dehumanization front, Yuri Kurlyanchik, a young author and game designer, exclaimed, "The term innocent Palestinian is an oxymoron." I really do appreciate you taking the time and watching the Kennedy Chronicles. Please do join our community by subscribing so that you don't miss out on any content regarding the Arab and Muslim history, identity, and modern condition. And if you really do enjoy the channel week in and week out and would like to support us even further, please do join us at our YouTube membership program as well as on Patreon. Thanks again. There are no two states and there are no two peoples. There's only one state for one people, said Moshe Phelan, a former member of the Knesset, in August 2014. This quote shows how, from the Oslo Accords onwards, the Zionist nation mastered a double tongue. Abroad, they spoke of peace, restraint, and painful compromise. At home, they promised eternal control, Jewish supremacy, and a land without division. Two states became a diplomatic costume worn for cameras shed in coalition rooms. Security was invoked to sanctify expansion, negotiations to anesthetize resistance. The rhetoric didn't fail by accident. It succeeded at delay. Peace was never the destination. It was the language used to keep the road closed. 5 years after the Accords, Ariel Sharon, the former Prime Minister of Israel, called out to his constituents. Everybody has to move, run and grab as many hilltops as they can to enlarge these settlements, because everything we take now will stay ours. Everything we don't grab will go to them. Or when Benjamin Netanyahu in March 2019 secretly stated to his colleagues that anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. This is part of our strategy to isolate the Palestinians in Gaza from the Palestinians in the West Bank. In each iteration of Zionist immoral statements, be it about dehumanization, collective punishment, racism, or blatant lies, I've listed 3 to 4 examples of such Zionist rhetoric. Let me be absolutely clear. This is but a drop in the ocean. A great source for whomever wants to go deeper into how the Zionists have constantly shot themselves in the foot by blurting out unbelievable statements that clearly self-condemn them of many accusations is the Zionist Observer website. Here are a couple of other samples from the same website that exhibit the range of careless, evil, and false morality Zionist personas have across a wide and diverse Israeli societal landscape. Benny Morris, a prominent Israeli historian in 2004, said, "There are circumstances in history that justify ethnic cleansing. A Jewish state would not have come into being without the uprooting of 700,000 Palestinians. Therefore, it was necessary to uproot them. It was necessary to cleanse the hinterland." And Caroline Glick, a journalist and author in 2021, who seemed to suggest Israel should murder the spokesman for the Islamic Republic of Iran's armed forces, Brigadier General Abul Fadl Shekarchi. He might want to check under the hood of his car, and his mattress, and his oven, and his clothes closet, and his hairdryer, and his electric beard trimmer before he uses them next time. Be a shame if something happened to him. The Zionist Observer site is a tremendous effort that consolidates many Zionist quotes, provides sources, contexts, and even includes the actual social media posts. I've listed their website in the video description, and I owe it greatly to the site for their highly professional organization and commitment. We don't need to infer, decode, or read between the lines when it comes to Zionist talk. The lines are shouted. Beliefs, morals, ethics laid bare in speeches, laws, chants, policies, and smirks. There is no shame left to excavate, no remorse hiding behind euphemism. These words are not accidents, they are declarations. They are extremists who drape themselves in civility, who swear allegiance to Western hymns of liberty, freedom, and equality, while practicing their opposite with bureaucratic calm. They cite democracy as alibi, security as scripture, values as costume. But behavior is the truest text, and when cruelty is defended in daylight, when domination is justified without apology, interpretation becomes unnecessary. The mask is not slipping. It has already been set aside, folded neatly and proudly.